I never thought a weed could make me stand up again. That's what they called it, a weed, something you pull out and throw away, something that grows between cracks in old stones, along fences, in places no one pays attention to. And for 60 years I walked past it every single day without knowing what it could do. I am 97 years old. My knees bent backward when I was young. Now they barely bend at all. But I'm still here, still moving, and that weed is part of the reason why. When I was a child, my grandmother never went to a pharmacy. There were no pharmacies, not in our village, not within walking distance. If your joints swelled, if your hands locked in the morning, if your knees made sounds like grinding stone, you didn't get a prescription. You went outside, you dug roots, you boiled leaves, you waited. That was the medicine. One plant grew everywhere in our village. We called it different names depending on who you asked. Some called it devil's claw. Others called it the root that bites back. It had thick, hooked pods that stuck to your clothes if you brushed past it. The root itself was gnarled, twisted, ugly. But my grandmother said ugly things often work the best. She used it for one thing only, pain that wouldn't leave, the kind that lived in your bones, the kind that made old men stop working and old women stop walking. She would dig the root in late autumn when the ground was still soft. She'd slice it thin, boil it slow, and make a tea so bitter you had to hold your breath to drink it. I watched her do this for others. I never thought I'd need it myself, but time is patient and arthritis doesn't announce itself. It just arrives one morning and stays. I was 62 when my fingers started locking. Not every day, just some mornings. I'd wake up and my right hand would be curled into a fist. I'd have to force it open, joint by joint, until it loosened. I thought it was age. I thought it was normal. By 65, my knees began to ache after every walk, not sharp pain, just a deep, dull heaviness that made me want to sit down. I started avoiding stairs. I started planning my day around how much I had to move. By 70, I couldn't open jars anymore. I couldn't twist doorknobs without wincing. I couldn't kneel in the garden without wondering if I'd be able to stand back up. My body was slowly locking itself. By 73, standing up from a chair became a slow, careful event. I had to lean forward, push with my arms, straighten my back in stages, and even then my knees would crack like dry wood. Doctors gave me pills, little white ones, little yellow ones. They helped for a while, then they stopped helping. Then they started hurting other things. My stomach burned. My head felt cloudy. I stopped sleeping well. I was told this was normal. I was told arthritis doesn't reverse. I was told to take more pills. I stopped asking questions. I just lived smaller. Then one afternoon I was sitting outside watching my neighbor pull weeds from his yard. He was younger than me, but not by much. He tossed a clump of plants onto the path near my feet. I looked down, hooked pods, twisted stems. I recognized it immediately. That night I dug up a root from the edge of my own yard. I hadn't thought about it in decades, but my hands remembered. I remembered the shape. I remembered the smell. I remembered my grandmother's voice telling me to slice it thin, not thick, to boil it slow, not fast, to drink it even when it tasted like dirt. I sliced it thin, boiled it slow, drank it bitter. I did this every morning for 2 months. The first 3 weeks, nothing changed. I kept taking my pills. I kept moving slowly. I kept expecting nothing. But somewhere around the 4th week, I noticed something small. My fingers didn't lock as long in the morning. I could open them faster. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't sudden, but it was real. By the 6th week, my knees felt different. Not pain-free, but quieter, less angry. I could stand from a chair without bracing myself. I could walk to the end of the street without stopping. I started testing myself. I'd kneel down to pick something up. I'd climb 3 stairs instead of 2. I'd open jars just to see if I could. By the 8th week, I stopped taking the pills. Not because someone told me to, because I didn't need them anymore. I didn't reverse arthritis. I don't believe in that language, but I slowed it. I softened it. I gave my body something it recognized, something it could use, and my body responded. Years later, I learned that scientists had studied this plant. They found compounds in the root that reduce inflammation. They found molecules that block the enzymes responsible for joint pain. They found effects similar to ibuprofen, but slower, gentler, longer lasting. They published studies, they ran trials, they patented extracts, they put it in capsules and sold it in stores. But they also warned against it. They said it wasn't regulated. They said it could interfere with medications. They said people shouldn't grow it themselves. They said people shouldn't trust plants they don't understand. And I wondered why. Because the plant worked. It worked for my grandmother. It worked for the people in my village. It worked for me, and it cost nothing. It grew in the yard. It didn't need a label or a pharmacy or a middleman. It just needed time. That's the part that makes people uncomfortable, time. We don't want to wait 2 months. We want to feel better in 2 hours. We want a pill that works fast, works now, works without effort. And the industry knows that, so they give us pills that act fast. But they also give us pills that stop working, pills that need other pills, pills that create new problems. The plant didn't do that. It worked slowly because it worked with the body, not against it. It didn't block pain signals. It reduced the cause of the pain. It didn't numb. It healed. But healing takes time, and time doesn't make money. I kept drinking the tea for years. I still do when I can find the root. I don't drink it every day anymore. I don't need to. My joints still ache. I'm 97. They're supposed to ache, but I can still move. I can still walk. I can still stand without fear of falling. And I never had to go back to those pills. I've watched younger people suffer from arthritis worse than mine. People in their 50s, their 60s, barely able to move. They take injections. They talk about surgery. They talk about replacing joints entirely, and I want to tell them about the root. But I don't. Because I know what they'll say. They'll say it's not proven. They'll say it's not safe. They'll say it's not real medicine. And maybe they're right. Maybe the version I used wasn't standardized. Maybe the dose wasn't exact. Maybe I just got lucky. But I got lucky for 35 years, and my grandmother got lucky her whole life. And the people in my village got lucky for generations. At some point, luck stops being luck. I think about my grandmother often. She lived to 93. She walked every day until the last month of her life. She never took a pill for pain. She never complained about her joints. She just drank her tea, tended her garden, and moved like someone half her age. When I asked her once why the root worked, she said something I didn't understand at the time. She said the body remembers plants. She said we grew up together, plants and people. She said medicine that comes from the earth works differently than medicine made in a factory. She said one speaks the language your body understands, and the other just shouts. I didn't know what she meant, but now I do. The root didn't force my body to change. It didn't override my pain. It didn't numb my nerves. It gave my body what it needed to fix itself. It reduced the swelling. It calmed the inflammation. It let my joints breathe again. And that took time. That took patience. That took trust. I don't know why hospitals would want this plant banned. I've heard rumors. I've read articles. I've seen warnings on websites. Some say it's because the plant isn't profitable. Some say it's because it interferes with pharmaceutical treatments. Some say it's because people might hurt themselves if they use it wrong. But I do know one thing. The plant grows everywhere. It costs nothing. It works slowly, and that makes it dangerous to systems that profit from speed. When I was 76, a doctor told me I should consider knee replacement surgery. He said my cartilage was worn down. He said my bones were rubbing together. He said I'd be in a wheelchair within 5 years if I didn't do something. I didn't do the surgery. I drank the tea instead. 21 years later, I'm still walking. I'm not telling anyone to stop their medication. I'm not telling anyone to ignore their doctor. I'm not telling anyone this plant will save them. I'm just telling you what happened to me, what I saw, what I lived. I drank a tea made from a root most people call a weed. And 60 days later, I could move again. 35 years later, I'm still moving. I've buried friends who had surgeries. I've buried friends who took pills for decades. I've buried friends who trusted the system completely. And I don't judge them. They did what they thought was right. They did what they were told. But I chose differently. I chose the plant. I chose time. I chose patience. And I'm still here. My hands still work, my knees still bend, my back still straightens. I move slower than I used to. I tire easier than I used to. But I move, and that's enough. Sometimes I walk past the plant growing in my yard and I stop to look at it, just a weed, just something most people pull out and throw away. But it gave me 35 more years of movement, 35 more years of independence, 35 more years of living without fear. I don't expect anyone to believe me. I don't expect anyone to follow my path. But I do hope someone listens. I hope someone remembers. I hope someone plants a seed or saves a root or asks their grandmother what she used to do before pills existed, because those answers are disappearing. Those plants are being called weeds. Those remedies are being forgotten, and the people who remember are dying. I'm 97. I won't be here much longer, but the plant will. It grows in backyards, along fences, in cracks in the pavement. It's waiting. It's always been waiting. You just have to know what you're looking at. That's all I know.